Okay, cool. I have the feeling that we haven't had this session in a while. Well, at least for me, it's that feeling. Maybe I missed a couple of Fridays. But yeah, let's just go through the agenda, I think. And for the first FYI read only item, I don't see anyone needing backup, or seems like no times off planned. All of the contribute plans and travels are getting cancelled. So let's just jump to the second part about the stage group discussion items. Diana, your item is first.
Yeah, I just added this item here. Hey Juan.
Oh, hey Juan.
Just now. Hope I can hear myself. Okay, cool. Yeah, we are doing some design evaluation on release management, and I'm putting the prototypes in front of users. So it's quite nice. It's the first time I'm actually doing this in release management. And it's this ongoing effort that it's still, in a way, leftovers from our job to be done from last year. And we're continuously iterating on top of it. So yeah, after getting the feedback, now we are putting the prototypes in front of people and getting quite some interesting feedback, because the users are like very different for the same category. So it's very interesting because yeah, it's release managers or DevOps engineers that do release management, and some of them really want to do everything through the API and not touch a single, button on the interface, while others are super exciting with the prototypes and they really want to have this capability with GitLab. So it's been interesting to see different opinions from, we consider like them the same personas. They just have different needs. And I just linked here this effort. So if you're curious, yeah, you can go check it out. I'm still documenting the user interviews, but I think this would definitely help us frame how we want to conduct the maturity validation, the scorecard for the UX maturity, not UX maturity, my God, category maturity. So yeah, that's it. It's kind of like a heads up, and if you're curious, click there.
I'm curious, maybe a quick question here, Diana. So you mentioned that you're testing the prototypes, and there are users who want to use the UI, and there are some users who like prefer use command line interface or something like that. What's the reaction of the people when you're suggesting them to test the prototypes and they like willing to use the code, for example, instead?
They just say the first reaction is, I don't want this. I just want to be able to do everything to the CLI, and I wouldn't even think about going through the UI. So it's really like these power users that are very technical, and that's something that we already support on GitLab, at least for release management, is that you can do most of the things through the code, through the API, which is awesome. But still, they would like to see how that is presented in the UI once a release plan is ready, or once they start getting people that are not technical involved in the process. But it's very like all or nothing kind of thing. It's interesting.
Cool. Interesting. Cool. Anything else interesting, exciting in other stages? Similar activities or? Gonna be like Christy, gonna hold it until somebody says something. Kidding. I'm not gonna torture you people. Let's go to the next items. Well, actually, any challenges that anyone wants to share, like anything happening that maybe any help needed, or you want to just share something, a challenge that you overcome.
Maybe I can still on the same topic, not a challenge, but it's really painful to do so much prototyping to do validation. And I wish there was a way to make it easier, with GitLab. Maybe once we move to Figma, that can become a bit easier. But I really saw myself spending hours doing prototyping to make it like pixel perfect in a way. And I still got quite some feedback from people saying, oh, this is not how it is in the product, or this is misaligned. And I honestly don't want to spend my time polishing prototypes because, yeah, they're not an actual deliverable. So I think every designer at some point struggles with that. I just think it's no fun to spend hours in prototyping. I'd rather just have the actual conversations or have the ability to do a quick prototype with the product. But yeah, that's definitely part of the curve, I guess.
Interesting. How do you think Figma will be able to help here? I'm curious how others are doing that, if similar challenges are there.
Yeah, I use the Sketch Cloud, and then I also use InVision for this because at some point we talked with the external customers, and I think at least I haven't used Figma so far, but I have in my mind that I can just like Sketch Cloud export it somehow, right, and have it also open for my developers to leave inputs and things like that. So the process of posting something, an issue, getting feedback from people, implementing the changes, exporting with Sketch. It's just, yeah, it's very time consuming. But anyone has any experience with prototyping and user interviews that worked better than what I just mentioned?
Sadly, I have found that I've had the exact same experience where it takes me 5 times longer just to make the prototype than it does to put the test together. I've never found a better way around it, unfortunately, unless you partner with the developers and try to like build it into the products. But that can even cost way more than what it's worth.
Yeah, exactly what I what I think. And to be honest, I think I just put the proposal and the discussion guide ready in like half an hour. And then I spent the next 2 days prototyping. So it feels counterproductive. But yeah, I guess we'll have to figure out something in the future if we need to do more like design evaluations, or at least plan for the proper like the amount of work that we need to face.
I have a very vastly different opinion on this than most designers. I personally dislike low fidelity because visuals matter. So I just live in a world where high fidelity is the fidelity. And now that sounds crazy, right? Because the point of low fidelity, I mean, I do like low fidelity in the sense of like, if you want to abstract the visuals out of it, right? Sometimes it's very important to think like UX versus like actual mockups. So it is valid, in my opinion, to have like that separated out. But then there's that other argument of like low fidelity is faster. That's where I kind of disagree. Like if you live in a high fidelity world all the time and you develop that skill and you have like design files that are high fidelity, that allows you to prototype at a speed. I would say that I could prototype as fast as most people can in low fidelity in a high fidelity thing. So when I produce mockups and things like that for usability tests, I do not have that problem. I bang them out and it's fast, but it's because I live in that world all the time. So it's a skill, right? It's a skill and it's a commitment to like be in that world, right? So if you're gonna maintain that, then it pays off. But if you don't, then it's like a big deal to get up to that high fidelity thing. So like everything in life, it's a trade-off, right? So I like to think in high fidelity.
And I think you're exactly touching the next point, is that I need to just build those things from scratch. There is no like ready, like an asset for the releases page, for example, that's already there that I can just reuse. I have to completely build the whole thing. And yeah, we do have the design library, that's fine, but still I need to manually. I just wish we could automate that. Yeah.
So what you both, Hayana and Mike, mean that if, for example, if Hayana would be like everything, designing everything in high fidelity, that she would make, she would have these parts for the release management that she could reuse in the future. Is this your secret, Mike, that you kind of like working so often there that you have every part of the page to be used?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, you can't cover it all, but like when you're working in an area like feature flags, seems to be what I always come back to in every discussion. But like, you know, when I was working on the redesign for that, like by the time I was done with that, I had a library of assets that I can now like, right? And it would honestly take more time for me to do that low fidelity than it would in high fidelity because the final mockups were delivered at that fidelity. So now I have this library to draw from. You know, so I mean that did come at a cost, but it's upfront and it pays off now. I'm not saying we should go to that route for everything because GitLab changes so much and so fast that maintaining a high fidelity library of everything would be insanity and it would just be divergent over time. But like there are times in life and design where you can like, you know, throw in some effort here and then it pays off, you know, over time.
I'm curious, like, isn't this the case where like the design system in this kind of like atoms, molecules, templates, and all of those like levels can come in place? Like, for example, couldn't Hayana reuse at least some of the parts for her work from what you were using today, Mike? Like, is there any solution for us like to share and speed up each other's work?
Well, I think Figma will help us a lot in that. So yeah, so like the stuff that I'm building in high fidelity, I'm not building much. I'm like organizing the components from our design library, right? Like the drop downs and things like that. Like in general, there's not like at the atom and molecule level, I rarely produce those things. I'm just using those things. So yeah, I think using those and leveraging those is a shortcut to this. And I think that actually gets better in Figma because that's where Figma shines, right? Is having a shareable library and not have to download it and resave it and update your imports and all that stuff. So I'm personally hopeful that once we switch to Figma, this world becomes more available to everybody.
Anyone was into this Figma meeting that was, I think, this week, like a follow-up? Anyone? Maybe I have to follow up on the status of Figma then. Okay, cool. That's useful to know. Good point brought up.
But if anybody asks outside of this meeting, I love low fidelity. It's great. Because you're as the designer in 2020, you're not allowed to say you don't like low fidelity. You get ostracized very quickly. You get kicked out of the community. Nobody talks to you anymore.
And to me, it's so painful. I'm like, I don't want to do prototypes. I'll just write everything down. And then when I have to prototype, I'm like, my God, I'll have to start over again. So in a way, it's nice to live in this high fidelity world because like what you just say, you have your own library. And that's what I did exactly with releases. I just built this one file and I broke it in Artworks with the issues and all the different versions with the symbols inside because I don't want to go there anymore. I don't want to recreate it.
Cool. Okay, Juan, to your point.
Okay, yeah, so we're still on the challenges, right? Because this is actually an interesting challenge that I'm dealing with right now. So we have, okay, I need to provide some context first. So as you guys know, when you do a merge request, there's this area in the merge request view that has what we call the merge request widgets. And those merge request widgets also you tell what they inform the user is if the pipeline passed, if it passed with warnings, if it failed. It also gives you all the results from the testing suites that you have on your CI project. It gives you it shows you vulnerabilities in your changes when it comes to security. There's a handful of things that are shown there. All of them are pretty useful for the user. Of course, for different personas, it's different things that matter, right? So if you are a front-end developer, you likely care a lot about performance of the codes that you're doing. So you're likely gonna check those. Of course, the biggest priority for everyone is making sure that the changes are passing the pipeline because that's what basically matters at the end of the day when it comes to making those merge requests. That's just a little bit of context of what I'm working on. So basically those MR widgets, they testing my group basically owns about 80% of them. I mean, we own a lot of them, right? So so we have been dealing with these things that they are not very usable anymore because there are a lot of them. They are basically I think they were well designed in their moment, but now they are not. They already reached this usability ceiling where they are not usable anymore because there's so much information in that page, and everything in that page is competing for attention. It's very verbose. It's a very complex view already, right? So we have an initiative in my group to start working on those, improving them. And funny enough, yesterday Becca, she posted in the UX channel that her team was planning to do a change on the security widget, the MR widget. So basically, I had to interject fast and say, "Hey, don't touch it!" Right? We're working on these. We know that it's a problem. But what was interesting about that issue is that their solution was a little bit biased. It was, "Oh, we need the attention from the user because these are security threats that we want to make sure that the user is seeing." And I completely agree with that sentiment, but that's a little bit too opinionated, especially because not every persona that consumes the MR view has the same goals and the same responsibility. So if I'm a product designer, I might care about accessibility, right? If I'm seeing that MR widget. So for me, seeing that in context as the most important thing matters. If I see security vulnerabilities, they don't matter to me, you know. And the MR view serves so many personas that we cannot just assume that this is the right thing to do, because what they wanted to do was basically changing the icon to from black to orange, which is, by the way, a super band-aid solution just to raise the attention of their MR widget. So I had to interject fast and say, basically bring my thoughts and explain that we already have thought about this, and that first of all, I thought that that was just competing for attention. And most likely what we were gonna do as testing, since we own so many of them, is follow suit and try to, for the sake of consistency, then make ours orange as well, you know, because it's not that we want to compete for attention with them, but we have personas that we serve as well, right? And we want to make sure that our personas are also seeing the issues that we raise through our MR widgets. So it's kind of interesting because I already had this meeting planned with Pedro next week. We actually had it this week, but we had to reschedule. But I had this meeting with Pedro to talk about how we are going to approach this, right? Because MR widgets are such an interesting thing. They are part of Create. As an entity, I think they are owned by Create because they are part of the MR view. However, the biggest client of MR widgets is the testing group, my group. So we have a lot of stakes on them, but there's other teams like security who also have stakes on these, and they have this issue in which they're saying customers are saying that they're not seeing the security issues. What should we do? So they want to kind of put a band-aid on it, right? So we have this crossroads situation where everyone wants to fix them, and they are not owned by those groups that want to fix them. And I mean, I could keep going on, but you guys get the idea, right? So yeah, that's a challenge. And I just want to hear some thoughts.
Juan, can you talk about this issue, the follow-up issue that you mentioned about exploring like the current problems on the,
yeah,
what are the next steps for you?
Yeah, so the idea is that we meet. I added Becca to the, so this is what I'm trying to do. Of course, I want to hear some thoughts on how to fix it, but my approach, and this is a completely new thing for me here in GitLab, so my approach is going to be meeting with Pedro. I added Becca to the meeting. I added my product manager as well, and I think we have the issue already open, right? So I think what I want to do is, first of all, align on responsibilities. Who is responsible for what? Of course, I remember that there was a leadership directed late in last year, whenever you're gonna touch things on MR, be very careful, right? Because that's a core functionality. If you break it, then you break GitLab. If you break GitLab, then we lose clients, right? So we need to be very careful with touching those very core views, right? So I think my first idea is just align everyone who is involved with MR widgets and try to find who is responsible for what, because I really don't know. You know, we consume them as components likely of any kind. I don't think they are actually GitLab UI components, but they are some sort of component even in Ruby or something. So we're consuming them. So I want to make sure who is responsible for what and define first that. Then I think the next step is we have that issue. And I think what I want to add is capture all the thoughts, all the different directions on that issue, and then start defining some design direction for these. Likely I'm gonna lead some of those designs since I own so many of them, you know. I would like to at least align for my group, for all the things that my group serves. But I understand that MR widgets are not a binary thing. It's not, this is good for everyone or not. There's likely many use cases. So that's why I want to bring someone like Becca to, hey, give me your thoughts. Let's see if we have to break them apart, create different sections for the MR widget, start thinking more out of the box in terms of this particular area of the product. But honestly, my only the only thing that I have on the horizon is that meeting, getting the alignment, and then I'll see what I will do. I don't know what else is going to happen after that.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. Like first identifying where everyone's responsibility kind of exists, because yeah, I adhere to the agenda that I also often touch merge requests and I don't feel like I have ownership over it.
Yeah.
So much information that we need to add to the merge request. And I think just to kind of raise the flag that sometimes it's challenging to even as a designer to identify that the merge request page will need to change, because
right.
suggestions, at least that I work with, they come from developers or they come during, you know, they are in the code and they decide I'm going to add a message to the merge request or I'm going to change this button. So it's very
exactly, yeah,
very interesting. So I think it's a great approach. And I would also if we decide to expand this to something that it can be more cross-functional, I think it would be interesting to get designers that have some ownership on widgets like merge request to have this,
right.
because I know for a fact that I'm going to change things. And it happened recently that I had to add information to something in the security vulnerability section.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's dangerous. I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think I don't have a full path ahead for this, but I think as I go, I'm gonna document all these things, make sure that what goes well, it's documented, and what doesn't go well, it's also documented. I think ideally we should write a handbook page for these type of issues, how to cross collaborate with other stages, because cross collaboration with you guys in this particular section, I think it's very well solved. You know, we know we are continuous, we meet often, we know each other, so it's very easy for us to, you know, collaborate. But when it comes to this type of issues, which is a designer that I rarely talk to, you know, I mean, I see them in the meetings and I see them and I talk maybe on UX chats, or Becca happens to be here in Austin, so I know her well because we meet for the co-working days. But, you know, it's an interesting thing, which is, it also makes me think that I don't know all the designers as well as I should, you know. I think we should find a way to, like, I think the body UX body thing works well, but I think there should be more things to.
So what would help here, like to align to mention what are the dedicated areas for every designer, or like when you're saying we should document, how can we be helpful here?
No, I think what I want to document is so what to do when your feature or issue impacts another section or group that it's not within your section, right? So create a handbook page that explains how to approach that. So first, create an alignment meeting. Make sure that from the alignment meeting, you come up with who is the direct responsible for different areas, blah, 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 blah. You know, kind of document all that stuff. So whoever faces this problem in the future, they already have something to look at and say, oh, that makes sense, you know. They, in full GitLab fashion, they can just go and change that as they think. If they believe it needs changes, but I think we should have at least the initial boilerplate for this, because I was trying to find that and I couldn't find it.
We can work with you on this together, Juan. I
Yeah.
think that's a really, really good idea. I'll put this here.
But to me, what I hear is not a problem, it's an opportunity. Because I think one of the struggles that we're going to have as we grow as a team is having multiple designers and people spread out, people get in silos. And we try to do things like UX showcase. We used to do like talk about, you know, in the kickoff meeting what you're working on. And those are all efforts to like rein that back in. So when I come across something that I feel like is going to impact another designer, to me, it's like an opportunity to reach out to that person, work with them, get to know them, understand what they're working on, dive into their world a little, and then also build that relationship to have like, you know, knowledge of what they're working on, what we're working on. So like, I don't disagree that it's not difficult, but I like to look at these as opportunities.
Right. No, there's definitely an opportunity there. I agree. I think where I got a little bit kind of like, oh my God, this is not good, is the fact that like, if Becca doesn't post that on the UX channel,
it would just
then,
happen, kind of.
Yeah, it will have changed that, and I wouldn't have ever found out about that, you know?
Yeah.
Which is what we need to solve. Because that they were going to impact something that impacts me, and I was not going to have visibility of that.
Yeah.
Thanks God that happened in the UX channel, and I was like, no, don't do it yet. I want to make sure that we are aligned, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. That's kind of what I want to solve.
And sorry, Ryan, I know that you posted something. Just quick question back to what Mike said. Mike, do you feel like a process documented for that would be helpful, or for you it's kind of like more natural to reach out to people? However, well, in these cases, apparently it wasn't very natural for Becca in this case.
To me, the process will be, I would be hesitant to document too much of a process, because it would be as far as like how the designers collaborate, right? Because that's going to vary so much. You know, there's twofold. Every designer works a little bit differently, and you put two together, then that's 4 times variance of, you know, how that process working between them would be. But what I do believe should be documented is what we just talked about there, of like, if you're going to touch area X, you must reach out to designer Y, right? And I think Hayan and I talked about this a little bit, even in the CI/CD stage of like, you know, establishing, I know we have that page of like, this designer is responsible for this, but like, that's so hard sometimes to go in there and figure out who's working on what. If we had like a clear, like, if you're gonna do this, you need to talk to this person, or at least ping them, make them aware of it. To me, that would be the key process change that would make this, that would kick this off, you know, and get more collaboration happening.
Yeah, and it's hard to identify this sometimes, like on the fly, because like what I mentioned before, sometimes you don't know that the change is going to affect something until it's in the code phase. But to me, this is really the biggest problem. It's not even figuring out how to collaborate with people, but to spot those opportunities ahead of time. Because by the time that I, for example, identify that Dimitri is doing something similar, it will stop. Which is probably happening now to Juan, right? Becca is going to stop, and then Juan's going to have, they're going to have to have this conversation, and that takes more time, and that's a whole different cycle. So I think solving this is problem 1, but to me, and I think what would make me super happy is to identify the areas that are shared by default, like what Mike just said, and have a way to validate this ahead. And I added here this handbook page that talks about use cases, right? For when customers want to do XYZ and they want to do it through merge requests or blah, blah, blah. So I'm not sure if we can use this or personas or whatever to kind of build this knowledge bases across the UX department, where you know that when you're working with merge requests, you're going to impact Juan, Mike, Hayana, and Ian. And you need to know ahead of time that you need to validate with them your proposals. So it should be easy, it should be part of the process, just a conversation. And in my point of view, not necessarily a long like handbook page with all the steps. If we know ahead of time, then we're just gonna figure it out. That's kind of where what I'm thinking. But you know, I can always be 100% wrong.
And I think a lot of that would go is in evangelizing the idea that assume there is impact by default, right? Never assume that it's not going to affect someone.
Exactly.
Like that's one of the first things I always do. Like I just had this yesterday where the issue was adding a to-do. And my first thought was like, well, I don't do to-dos. Let me go find the designer who does. And that took a little bit, right? I didn't even know who it was because of the shuffle. And I had to talk to the manager and get the manager involved. But it worked, right? It was a day process and I got the right person and now they're in the issue. And all they did was say, yep, that looks good. But at least now Holly knows that a to-do was impacted. So, you know, just the idea of it is your responsibility to find out if this is going to impact somebody. I think just saying that would bring us a long way, because I think that's not necessarily people's opinion right now.
So I think we have a open issue maybe by Nadia, the other Nadia, about like a UX template for issues or something like that. This is definitely, in my opinion, like an acceptance criteria. It's a check. You know, the same thing we do for pajamas is check if this is has dependency or if it's gonna have an impact in a different product area. Because
yeah, I like that a lot.
you just
And you think that's a good place for this type of thing to be, like in that issue? Will it be enough discoverable, do you
I'm
think?
not sure because it really proposes that that's a UX template, and I think it should be a feature template, right? If you know that this feature, for example, I'm working with progressive delivery and I'm impacting merge requests, it's already not my area, right? It should be something in the acceptance criteria that also works for the developers. Because if the PM can identify that, we can already say, hey, I need more time to check this because I need to check with these many designers that also own this capability. So, and we also don't work with UX issues. So I don't know, UX.
Yeah, and that's a great point. We just had that in where engineers would benefit from this share first, you know, where we had something where we were about to rebuild something in Vue, and turns out the Verify group was working on the very same area of rebuilding it in Vue. And if it wasn't for a little design collaboration, we would have not known about that. So yeah, this isn't just a UX problem. This is an engineering problem, PM problem. This is an everybody problem. So a forced checkpoint, I think, would be great.
I just had a random thought. It's a little stupid thing, but wouldn't it be great if there was something that you have like a Chrome extension where you hover over something and it tells you, oh, this is owned by this PM, this designer, this engineering manager. I don't know. I just had the thought that would be amazing. As you navigate GitLab, it tells you who owns what. But that was just
Magic.
stupid.
I was thinking like a GitLab bot where it like goes through and like if it says to do right in the issue description, GitLab bot comes along and says, "Hey Holly, come look at this," right? Or you know, like I don't know. I do think the counterpoint to this would be though, like, you know, I can see Nadia's wheels turning over there and like, let's go propose this and let's make a company-wide change on this. I can already hear the resistance to this. We do have like the be the DRI, you know, do things quickly. You know, there is that counter argument to this, that adding this checkbox slows down every single issue that gets made. And I think that's the counter argument to this that we are likely going to encounter.
I'm already opening a merge request because I'm just gonna push this down on people's throat. Because if it's something valid and we can, just have the discussion in the merge request.
Let's do it. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. But at least there's going to be a nice reminder if that's not going to come into anything tangible. Thanks, Han. Alrighty, we have like 10 minutes left of official time. Should we move on to the next items? Because we have quite some to discuss. Okay, cool. About the process section. So there have been quite some process updates, as you've seen. I've gone wild in this section. And I just wanted to share, some of them are still coming up. Like, for example, everybody have heard the news, I assume, about the new maturity scorecards that would be used for validating the changes in the maturity of the features in GitLab. We have a OKR connected to that, and this quarter's OKR is falling for release management and package. So I know that Hayana and Juan will probably be affected by this first. Jeff and Sarah have been drafting this process. For now, it's still an MR, but I think it's almost ready to be an official change to the handbook. So I encourage everyone to go. I'm sure some of you have seen this already. Go through the process, provide the feedback if you have any. It sounds like it was quite some feedback already added to that. This process looks quite serious, and we've been discussing this with some of you already. I guess it will just come also to the point when, hey, let's just go and try it out and see what feedback we will get, and then iterate on that. This what was coming out with some of the feedback that we already got delivered. So if you will have any questions or any suggestions, let's or discuss it there, or let's bring it up in other meetings like this or in one-on-ones. And then the official changes that already have been merged, that was slight updates to the problem validation process and to the solution validation process. Updates to these two processes been mostly caused by the headcount planning news that also been recently announced. The biggest change in the problem validation was that the official DRI for that right now is the PM. And so if you follow up the steps, most of the items, the product management should be triggering, and together in a collaboration with the UX researcher. So by default, the burden of the product designers' work is kind of like falling off. So we are being released in there. I know that's not necessarily a good thing for some of us. So if we have a time, or if we have a desire to join the process, we are more than welcome. But it's more kind of like the DRI changes to the product management. And let me stop here for a second, Hen. I see you posted, and Ian posted the links, the comments.
Yeah, because I thought this change was quite interesting, because the way that we've been conducting problem validation, at least, is that PMs and researchers are the DRI, right? So the designer, at least from my understanding, was not really necessarily the owner, the DRI of this initiative. And I found quite interesting, because Jackie and I have been conducting validations, both problem and solution validations, quite smoothly in the last couple of months. And I wonder, like, how this changed, like this step of research now is leading it. So we open the request, and then we have to follow all the steps, how that's going to affect us. Because, for example, Jackie just knows people, and then she just schedules calls with them informally. And then we conduct the interviews kind of on the fly. And I wonder how this change will affect like teams that are already in a way thriving with the process the way that it is. If this is more like a suggestion and a recommendation, then, you know, a hard guideline for how do we want to conduct. Because yeah, I feel kind of a overkill in having to follow all these steps precisely like that for something that we already do.
And your point is that why would we open a research request and use the capacity of a coordinator and UX researcher if we have already?
Exactly. I think what I missed from this merge request is saying that, yeah, if you can do this yourself, then just go ahead and do it. That's kind of like what I'm missing. Because is that going to be, is the research coordinator necessary because they need to look at the budget, or they need to allocate, I don't know, resource from the researcher when evaluating our insights, or is it just for the sake of the process? That's kind of like my question. You know? And Ian,
Ian.
what's your thinking?
Yeah, mine's kind of attached, and now I feel a little awkward and not quite attached. But I've noticed as we've kind of filled out the problem validation and solution validation, Tim and I were doing a really good job, I think, in the beginning, like just doing the research and going for it. And recently it's turned into a lot of paperwork. I feel like I'm writing the same thing multiple times now. So I guess along Hannah has kind of the same question. Is this new process more of like a suggestion? And if we're already rocking it, like don't rock the boat or don't fix something that's not broken? Or is this like what we should be doing?
Yeah, well, these are very good points, and I think they're worth to be delivered to Jeff and Sarah, to the UX research team, because they're responsible for this process. I felt like we've been bringing some of this similar feedback, and then again, this is kind of like the suggestion. I take this as a suggestion for the process. However, I'm not sure if we don't follow creating the research request, if we then gonna get into the trouble. So yeah, I can go ahead and clarify that, or we can also, like, for example, Hayana or Ian, feel free to post this question in the UX research channel and just ask them there. Or if you want, I can follow on that up. But I think like the best will be if research team would hear the feedback and these types of questions from the product designers themselves. Because as I was saying to some of you earlier, you are the people who are driving this process and going actually through that. So you are the best people to talk about that from your day-to-day experience. What do you think? Would you want to bring this up in the UX research channel to Jeff, for example, and ask this question about the more mature pairs of UX and PMs, like kind of like you mentioned, for example? Or should I help to follow up on this?
I think it's fine if we have like on Slack, we can discuss async. No.
And more people will see that, and maybe more people will say, hey, +1, you know, because I feel like, yeah, this is what I was saying, that I feel like we had these similar discussions before, and because they maybe didn't get so much +1 votes, because maybe it wasn't visible to the wider audience, this is why it didn't get so much attention. So I think the best thing would be to do that here. We can try this way, and if that doesn't work, we can try others. Thanks, cool. Yeah, and there was quite some change, well, slight change to the solution validation process. And the biggest change in there was that the UX researcher was kind of like being moved out a little bit more from this process than we may be used to, in order to save their capacity to help more with the problem validation space. And the biggest change was that a product designer should leverage the time and the help of the UX managers to help with the validation process, to help like, maybe pick the way of the testing, the type of the testing, and help solving any issues that could come up there. So like the UX manager should be the first person that product designers can ask help for in this type of process. There are more details described here, as well as in any solution validation. I think you have to assign it also to the yourself, but also to the UX manager. I would be happy to be more involved in this process. I miss this part of work. Till now I wasn't very much involved. Would be happy just to be as FYI in the beginning, and if anyone needs help, would be happy to help solving that as well. Curious to hear feedbacks as well as we go trying that process. And yeah, Hayana, I know that you put some comment there as well. Want to vocalize this one, Hayana?
You're talking about
Yes, solution validation. Like you said, some UX Epic. Oh, that's different. Sorry. So yeah, let's give it a try. And again, always open to iterate if we need it. Hey, and I noticed that we are 3 minutes over the time. So if I know it's Friday and it's later for some of us, if I'm open to stay for 5-10 minutes more, if we feel like that. If not, we can just move the items to the next session. Who needs to go? Let's stay for 5-10 more minutes to finish this up.
Social life on Fridays. We are just like, it's okay.
Oh. Cool. All right, then quickly, Hayana, to your point.
Yeah, I'll go quickly over this one. I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but I'm not using issue boards anymore. And I think other designers are doing something similar, but I just wanted to share here how Jackie and I are prioritizing the issues for the upcoming milestones. And then that's with an Epic, where she just throws there everything that I need to look at, that it's still open. And that's also kind of like provides me guidance. So that I'm not in the context of the planning or dev boards, because the priority changes quite a lot there. Yeah, and I just linked the Epic here if you're curious. It's been working very well because, yeah, it gives me just a single point to focus on, rather than having to ask what the priority is or having to check with the PM. So that's super cool, because when I'm done kind of scoping the issue, I move the issue to its proper, like the proper Epic, instead of the needs UX review Epic. And we can really see, like, yeah, things that are moving, and if they come back and I need to rescope. So that's what I've been doing, and yeah, it's been working for me. So have a look.
Cool, thanks. I'll definitely check. Interesting approach.
And I'm gonna quickly jump to my next point, which relates to the previous topic about the maturity scorecard. Yeah, and I have been chatting about this, but I just wanted to know from the others, like from Mike and Juan, what's your plan? And have you guys like thought about it, or do you have an idea how you're gonna tackle this OKR? Because yeah, maybe we can have awesome ideas and support each other in this challenge.
I definitely, I'm interested, very interested on this as well, because we definitely have a lot of categories that we want to move, or we want to reevaluate. At least on testing, we have several. So, but I don't know how to tackle this OKR, to be honest. I mean, like, I'm just saying that it impacts me for sure, but I don't have a clue right now.
My plan is to create a plan. We actually talked about this yesterday in our PMUX, that we need to create a plan. So I made a issue for myself and my personal board to create a plan. So that's where our plan's at. I do think like it is enticing to kind of like see if we could do some cross stuff, but I do think that ultimately these are probably going to have to be like somewhat siloed, right? You're going to have to focus on this area and the jobs to be done is going to have to be written in such a way that it can result in you giving your particular area maturity. It would be interesting to see like jobs to be done that crosses across a bunch of these and that, but that just seems like it'd be fantastic, but unachievable.
Hey, yeah. How can I help here? It seems like we're having it seems like there are quite some concerns about this new process. What's best to do? Do we want to give it a try and see if we are making this OKR? And if not, then suggesting improvements based on the experience and seeing where we're gonna like have the biggest trouble, or you have an idea as how we can already suggest to correct that. Yeah. So yeah, hey, like my plan, my suggestion for a plan here. It seems like Hayana and Ian will be the first people to try. I don't know, Juan, if you have any already planned for jobs to be done for the maturity change. Let's stay on in close sync and let's raise issues as they come in. Yeah, again, this is an OKR. Even if we will miss it, it's nobody gonna die. We will learn from it. But let's give this process a try. So then we see clear steps. Okay, so then we can say, okay, here, this is unrealistic. So we can bring it back to the user research team. How does that sound?
That sounds fair. I mean, is this OKR for when it should due again?
Q1. So that's January. Was it January? February, March, April. So April 31st. It's
okay.
I mean, it does seem a little bit unrealistic that they haven't even finished the process merge request. That this, you know what I'm saying? You never do design and engineering in the same milestone. You never define the process and expect the process to be followed in the same quarter. That just seems, I don't know. Because we talked about that yesterday. So in my plan to create a plan, we discussed we probably can't implement the plan until the merge request defining the process is in place before we can execute against said process. So we can't even technically start on this yet because we don't have the process yet defined.
Agreed. A very fair comment. And you know what? I think I'm going to be, not I think, I will schedule, we have one-on-ones with Jeff, and I'll just going to say that we have these discussions in CI/CD, so then they're at least like aware. Maybe maybe he has something to suggest. It's a very fair comment that you're saying, Mike, that it's like March. It's almost, well, it's middle of the quarter, and it seems like the process was just finalized. But again, if we will miss this OKR, it's going to be yeah, it's okay, I would say. But yeah, of course, we should try to hit it. But let's see how this goes.
Yeah, I think I also want to make a suggestion here because the scope is very broad at this point with the whole suggestion. I think if we want to have some sort of deliverable for this quarter, given that the quarter is already, I don't know, it's already started. I see two things. One is changing the OKR to be, you know, defining what the OKR is during this quarter, and whatever things we decide to do, break it down into smaller deliverables. So the first, you don't have to do everything at once, right? We have other priorities as well. So maybe instead of conducting all this research and talking to all these users and looking at all the clicks that they do, we break the first part is identifying what workflows you need to validate. Second part is plan the research. Third part is conduct the research, evaluate, blah, blah, blah. Instead of making this a big deliverable, that's going to be very challenging to tackle at once. Because yeah, been having discussions with Jackie, and we're just a bit concerned that this might take more time than, you know, than we want to actually spend on these OKRs. The train is moving, and of course we still want to deliver something, but how can we deliver like as the value, the boring solution, so that we show some value, we show some progress with this rather than one big thing, incomplete.
Yeah, and playing off that a little bit, like I would like to see us do like everybody try to do one of your categories, and then let's see how the process went. And like you got to user test the process before you try like this is the process and do it across everything. It would be nice to do like a pilot, like pick one, try the process, see how it like works, user feedback, gain that, and then let's use that to define the process, right? Like user research works for everything, including this.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It seems like you both are kind of like suggesting to bring it up a little bit, like make it more smaller in chunks, like to the iteration value, right? But yeah, A good solution, good suggestions. The only thing I can suggest right now, is that I just bring this feedback back to the team, or I don't know. Yeah, in case you have a solid suggestion that how I can help here, please help me out. I would be happy to be useful. I will definitely deliver this feedback back to Jeff and say, hey, these are the concerns. Like, what is your thought on this?
And I think Jeff, but also the user research team that is defining the process as well.
Yeah, Jeff is kind of like driving this, and Sarah and research team. Yeah.
Oh, one question but do we all have to try to reevaluate maturity? I mean, that's one question that
No, it's only if this is why I was a little bit surprised that you're saying that this is coming for you. It's only if the maturity of in your stage group was changed. We have this maturity, what is this feature maturity page in a handbook?
yeah. No, I know, but I have, so the thing with testing is that testing is divided in multiple things. So there's some that are, we don't have anything in Lovable, I think. So I think that it's, I think there's some that are close to like being reevaluated, but we have performance, we have accessibility, we have unit testing. So we have so many, right? So again, I want to take that back. I'm not saying that this is coming from me. It's likely that at least one might, based on things that we are going to be shipping soon on 12.9, 12.10, it's likely that one might be on a state in which we say, like, let's see what happens with this one.
So
right?
in order to change the maturity, you will need to go through the process and make sure.
Got it.
Yeah,
no, I get that, but I just wanted to make sure that this is not something that we're doing like in tandem for everyone, like go and reevaluate your maturity, and then it's just when you know that you want to move it forward, right?
correct. Yeah, it's
Okay.
well, for everything. The change maturity starts in Q1.
Okay.
Or Q4 in FY20, in fiscal year 20. So
Okay.
if anything from that time changed in maturity from Q4 fiscal year 20, we have to reevaluate it right now, and everything that's going to be changed in the future, we have to go through that process.
Got it. No, that makes sense. Thanks.
Okay, we are at 5:30. So I don't know if you wanna give a really quick shout out to the stage Think Big, and I guess the last point we have to move because I don't want to delay people too long. However, it's not going to be too fast with a big, but maybe you want to.
The slight problem with moving that is it is time dependent, right? I don't want to keep people either. Really, we're not able to meet yesterday, so we're hoping to utilize this time. It is a slight unfortunate thing that the way our agenda is set up, that sometimes the first point added is the last one discussed. But I don't know, Ian, what do you think here? Is there a quick blurb we can give here? And not
It totally is.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm optimistic. Think Big is next week. This is really exciting. We're bringing PM and UXers together. You all know this lovely magic. I recently went through the agenda and made some adjustments. What we could use from you guys is, is to add points similar to what I had done for package and what Hayana had done for CI, where it's like we have this insight, here's a question we have, and we want to get to about 4 of those so we can go through the Think Big and have these conversations. So that's kind of what we need from everyone else to move it forward, is to basically create those discussion points. I'm going to start off with an easy one for package that's just really easy to understand, it's easy to relate to, and has a pretty wide net. Go through some brainstorming, we'll move on to the next one. I think I did that in under a minute. I'm really proud of myself, but I actually have to go. So I'm going to be really mean and say, if you have any questions, you can ask Mike.
Yeah, and if you need to set a follow-up for this, so I'm happy to participate at least on Monday or anything. Let me know if I can help there. Thanks, Ian. And yeah,
One quick thing before everyone, okay, he's gone, but I don't know if you saw these, but now you have to go to Trip Actions if you book your flight through Trip Actions and ask for the refund. It's not gonna be automatic. You have to go and take action yourself. So
thanks Juan for
have that in mind.
And that is time dependent too, right?
Yeah, tomorrow, before tomorrow, I think it needs to be
oh
done.
my God, thanks for saying that.
But I felt important to mention that because I know Hayana has been trying to leave for like since before this meeting started, and I would hate to see her walk out and not do that and then not be able to get the refund. So it's 48 hours is do it now before you
Yeah.
before you head out.
On also a happier note, I just created a merge request for the feature proposal template, and I'm gonna link it here. I'm gonna put it as a work in progress, and yeah, please feel free to leave your input.
Drop it also in the CI/CD chat, please, so then Ian also sees it.
Yeah. Oh my God, so slow GitLab. Oh my God. Wait, creating. I shouldn't have said I already created. Okay. I'm just gonna add here because I'm gonna fill in the description, but have a look at the change. It's in the end of the file. Cool. I'll ping everyone here. This is the thing that adds UX cross-stage feature question to the issue template.
I'm adding this also to the agenda document here in the section where we discussed that. Okay, well, I'm not holding anyone anymore. So Mike, again, if you feel like we need to talk through the thing big, feel free to schedule just another short session, 25 minutes or something, with me, with everyone. Yeah, because I would like that session to be successful. I'm sure it will be, but I want to make sure that I'm helping.
I think Ian's public service announcement was the correct phrasing there. So as long as we do take the time to go in there and add those things, then we should be okay. But I'll keep an eye on it. If we need to, then I will. But not, have a good weekend. And by the way, great meeting today, in my opinion.
Thanks for sure. Thanks everyone. Enjoy the weekend.
Bye.
Bye.